Welcome to episode 11 of our series on the surnames of Appalachia and the American South. If you're a subscriber, you know that I've only posted one episode on surnames per week. But starting today, I'll post 2 episodes on surnames per week until March. If the quality is good enough to keep the channel growing, we'll keep producing them. Now, to make our task more manageable, I want to continue to focus on pre-Civil War surnames. The Industrial Revolution brought a lot of new names in. We don't want to go there yet. As always, each of the names we'll examine today was requested by folks in our YouTube community. In case you missed the previous videos on surnames, I'll post a link to them in the description. So, today on the Vantage Point, we're going to jump right in and look at the origins and meanings of 9 more family names found in Appalachia and across the American South. I hope you'll join me. Let's get started. Number 1, Longmire. This Scandinavian or Old Norse surname means dweller at the long marsh or bog. It might be helpful to think about a place where you can get mired down. Get it, Longmire? Knowing that kind of gives me chills though. The pre-Christian ancients in Scandinavia, especially Denmark, made human sacrifices and executions and then deposited the bodies in the bogs. Now, no doubt the ancestors of today's Longmire families saw some of those watery burials, if not executions. Of course, when I hear the name Longmire, my mind doesn't really go to the land of the Vikings. It goes to Wyoming and the TV show Longmire. Now, Longmire is not common in Ireland, Wales, or Scotland, so it looks like the surname came to America from northern England. Number 2, Hatfield. Hatfield is arguably one of the most famous surnames in Appalachia. That's mostly due to the Hatfield-McCoy feud that took place in the late 1800s along the Kentucky-West Virginia border. That feud has many parallels to the feuds that took place along the English and Scottish border back in the 1600s and before. In both cases, it was not uncommon for reivers to cross the sometimes fluid border, moving back and forth that is, to make raids. When James VI of Scotland became James I of England in 1603, he then had the authority to police both sides of the border, unlike any monarch before him. Federal court decisions in the U.S. had something of the same effect in Appalachia, kind of calmed things down there on the border between West Virginia and Kentucky. Hatfield is an Old English name that was given to dwellers by Heathfield, so it looks like Hatfield came to America from England. Number 3, Kildare. Kildare doesn't appear to be common in Wales or Scotland. Henry Harrison confirms that the name is of Celtic origin, but he often uses Celtic instead of Welsh, so it took a bit of digging to see which variety of Celtic he meant. As it turns out, Kildare derives from Ireland's County Kildare, and it looks like we can be confident that the Kildare surname in the South is a toponymic of Irish extraction. But please remember that many Irish, Welsh, and Scottish families had members who moved to England, so they could have came from England. The same applies to Kildare, of course. Number 4, Kincaid. If you are a descendant of a Kincaid and are interested in Scottish history, you will be pleased to know that this toponymic name originates in the heart of Scotland in Stirlingshire. That's not too far from Stirling Castle, where King James VI and I was raised. In case you don't recognize his name, he's the monarch who authorized the publication of the Bible into English. Also nearby is Bannockburn. That's where Robert the Bruce defeated Edward II. Now, looking outside of Scotland, Kincaid doesn't seem to be a common surname in England or Wales. By the end of the 17th century, though, Kincaid was well established in Northern Ireland's Ulster, particularly counties Derry and Antrim. So I think we can be confident that in America, Kincaid is either a Scottish or Scots-Irish surname. Number 5, Stewart. On the surface, Stewart seems to have a complicated past. The name can be traced back to Old English and Old Norse. It was assigned to a person who cared for a lord or master's domestic animals. By the 11th century, Steward, with a D, was a title of honor and responsibility. While it was already a surname used by royal administrators, it took off as a family name in Scotland when Robert II ascended to the Scottish throne in 1371. Robert II was the grandson of Robert the Bruce. Robert the Bruce's daughter, Marjorie, married Walter Stewart, the 6th High Steward of Scotland. In the 1500s, Mary Queen of Scots changed the spelling of her surname to Stewart with a U instead of a W because the French language doesn't use the W. Why would Mary, Queen of Scots, care about French, you might ask? That's a good question. Well, it was because her mother was French and served as the regent of Scotland after the king, her husband, Mary's father, was killed in an accident. Mary was just an infant when her father died, so Henry VIII of England wanted to force a marriage between his son and the princess. The English monarch initiated an undesirable courtship called the rough wooing. So, for her safety, little Mary was sent to France to be raised at French court. We could do a whole series of videos just on Mary, so I'll suffice it to say that she chose the French spelling because of her own sophisticated tastes. Despite Mary's efforts, though, Edward Mccullough, the author of the Surnames of Ireland, calls Stewart a Scottish name. He reports that 90% of the people who have that surname in Ireland live in Ulster. In Appalachia and the American South, Stewart most likely originated in Scotland or Ulster. Number 6, Mccullough. With the MC, which means the son of so-and-so, we know that Mccullough is either of Scottish or Irish origin. George Fraser Black, the author of the Surnames of Scotland, claims that there is much obscurity on the origins of this old Glaswegian surname. Now, Black claims that the surname means the son of the boar, but hold on. The name first appears in Scottish records in 1296, and it later shows up in the 17th century in Ulster, where it took on the meaning of the Hound of Ulster. To make the waters a little muddier, Harrison argues that Inverness, Scotland is Mccullough's place of origin. He also argues that the name means little calf. That's 3 places of origin and 3 meanings. Given its arrival in Ulster during the Jacobean plantation movement of the 17th century, I think we're safe in claiming a Scottish or Scots-Irish origin for the surname in America. Number 7, Haney. Where I'm from, there are many fine families named Haney. In my video on Appalachian ghost stories, which I'll link to in the description, I tell a ghost story that took place in Haney Holler. It's pretty interesting, I think. Nevertheless, Harrison suggests that the surname is toponomic. He points out that in Lincolnshire, England, there is a small hamlet named Haney. In Scotland, there was an ancient family named Haney, but it's now Haney. The name is not common in Ireland or Wales, so I think we're safe in saying that Haney is an English or Scottish surname. Number 8, Bell. Simple names like Bell and my own van name can have multiple origins and just as many meanings. Some sources claim that Bell is a Middle English name that was derived from one who rings bells. But I disagree, and I agree with Edward Mccullough in claiming that the name, which is a border British surname really, stems from the Old French meaning beautiful. Lowland Scotland and the border country was partially settled by Anglo-Norman nobles, so I think that it was them who ultimately introduced Bell into the regional list of surnames. Mccullough also says that Bell is among the 10 most common English names in Ireland, but they are heavily concentrated in the northeastern counties in Ulster. In the American South, Bell could be Scottish, English, Anglo-Irish, Scots-Irish, or simply border British, depending on one's preference, I suppose. Number 9, Caldwell. This surname is one of those popular names that has English origins, but it's well represented in England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. One of the reasons why this name is so popular, aside from it just sounding really cool, is that it's an Old English surname that means cold spring or cold well. It's not hard to find cold springs or wells in any of those places, I can tell you that for sure. You know, as I mentioned in another video, I think, I lived outside of a small Scottish village called Dunning. There was a burn, which is a large stream or small river, that flowed out of the Ochil Hills and through the wee settlement. Like many streams over there, Dunning's burn was quite clear. In exploring the area, I discovered a farm road that disappeared through Dunning's stream, only to reappear on the other side. I could see the rocks on the bottom of the fast-flowing burn, so I thought it was safe enough to try to pass. Anyway, I tried to cross it in my Nissan. The next thing I knew, I was stuck and water was cascading into the driver's window. I can tell you that the spring water in Scotland is chilly. At any rate, the surname Caldwell could be virtually of any part or from any part in Great Britain. However, in Ireland, it's mostly found in Ulster, and it's also used by a Gaelic-speaking family in County Tyrone. Their Gaelic name was... I think you'll need a paper trail or a Y chromosome DNA test to find out the origin of your specific line of Caldwell. Well, friends, that's about it for today. I hope you got something meaningful out of our discussion, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. And I invite you to check out all the videos on the Vantage Point. I'll be back on Friday or Thursday, probably Friday, with another episode on Surnames of Appalachia and the American South. I hope to see you then. God bless you and yours. Take care.